In honor of the conclusion of an amazing first season, here is X-Men's Rogue and Gambit Cardback Edition, part of the X-Men 97 line. After watching the first few episodes and seeing the figures that were coming out from this show, I knew I needed to have at least a few of them, if not the whole squad. There isn't a whole lot to these figures, so let's get them out of the package so we can get them up on the turntable. I've always had a hard time getting these things out of the packaging without destroying them too much. There's no real good way to open them without ripping something. If you guys have a better way, please feel free to leave it in the comments. After removing Gambit from his package, he is exactly what I wanted. They did a great job on his head and hair sculpt. There's a little overpaint of his skin color on his head thing, but this figure's going to be viewed from a distance, so that's not really too big of a problem for me. But I can always fix it with a simple paint job. He's got a great head tilt and swivel. He can put his head almost all the way to his chest. The jacket does get in the way a little bit with turning his head 90 degrees to his body, but I don't know of any instance where I'm going to be turning his head that far around. So that really isn't a big problem. Although it does look great, the jacket is a little bit on the stiff side, so that kind of hinders some poses that you could put him in. His arms are single hinged joints, which always seems to be harder to move comparatively to the double hinged joints when first pulling them out of the package. I know some of you have said to dip them in warm water, which helps free them up a little bit. I haven't tried that yet, but I know I'm probably going to have to do that in the future. His biceps have an extra swivel, so you can rotate his arm into different positions, and his hands don't have any joints at all. They only have the ability to rotate. His legs, however, do have double hinged joints, which gives this figure the ability to get into some great poses. If you've seen any of my other videos, I'm kind of spoiled with the Classified series, because they have double hinged joints across the board. So when I don't get them, I'm kind of sad. But thankfully, they did Gambit right. His foot joints were a little tough to move. I did end up using a hairdryer to warm them up, which got them moving a little easier. They gave him the Classified series ab crunch, and between the flexibility of his legs and that ab crunch, he has a ridiculous range of motion. Look at that. His overall paint job is very well done and is very true to the character. As for his accessories, he comes with a staff or a bow or whatever it's considered, as well as a second left hand that has the effect of him throwing charged cards. He also comes with a singular card that has a charged smoke effect coming from it. That slots into his left hand between his fingers. It looks pretty awesome, I'm not gonna lie. I wish they had provided a more generic third hand. I don't know what I would do with it, but I kind of want it. If he's not throwing the cards or holding the singular card in his hand position is just kind of in a weird pose. Let's put him aside and get Rogue out of her package. Again, with the package ripping, I can't seem to get it right. I think they did a great job with the design of this figure. However, if you look at it compared to the picture on the back of the card, she looks quite dead and lifeless. I don't know how they managed to get that one looking so lifelike.
Lifeless eyes, black eyes like a doll's eye.
I think it's just a mass-produced paint job situation in the eyes. She also has the single-hinged elbow joints, which moved a little more freely than Gambit's did. I've noticed that slimmer characters with single-hinged elbow joints seem to move more freely for some reason. Her jacket is really well sculpted, and I also really like that they added the X on her sleeve, as it is in the original character design. She also has the same head tilt that Gambit does, and she can almost touch her chin to her chest, but her hair impedes her looking up. This only comes into play when she's in a horizontal flying pose. Her ab crunch is slightly different than Gambit's. The top part of her torso ratchets over the bottom part of her torso instead of having that pivot point in the middle like Gambit does. This allows you to ratchet it backwards a bit and give her the impression that she's puffing out her chest a little more. I think it really works for this character where it wouldn't with Gambit. We also get the double hinged knee joints here, as well as the ability to swivel her upper thigh. Her feet moved a little more freely than Gambit's did right out of the packaging, so I didn't have to use a hairdryer this time. Something a little different with this figure that I really like is that they gave her hands pivot points. It was a nice feature. This way you can cock her hands inward just a little bit. That gives her a little more movement and emotion with a single hand position. She comes with 4 different hands. There are 2 right hands, one is gloved and one is ungloved, and the 2 left hands are gloved and the other one is holding the glove that was removed from her right hand. I do appreciate that they gave us an ungloved version because that is part of her power set. And it would be kind of sad if they didn't allow for that. They also caked her up pretty good. I'm not mad about it. That's the Rogue that we know in the comic books and the X-Men cartoon. You can pose this figure standing on the ground, but she also really benefits from an action base. Let's get these up on the turntable and see what kind of poses I can get them into. If you haven't seen X-Men 97 yet, you're doing yourself a disservice. Get over there and go watch it. You should also check out the podcast we did on my channel covering every episode. We can't say enough good things about it. These 2 figures are exactly what I wanted for a reasonable price. Obviously, there's a step up from these, but you'll be opening your wallet. They pose very well, they look fantastic, and I can't wait to get the whole squad to join them. When I do get them, I'll have to make a display piece with all of them. I've always loved these 2 characters, but I've never bought any of the previous releases, but I am very happy that I picked these 2 up. If you're an X-Men fan like I am, these are well worth the purchase. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I have a lot more projects that are currently in the works, as well as more toy unboxings. Thank you again, and I'll catch you next time.